What did you think of the first week of free agency as it relates to the Bucs? Keeping a couple of their own guys, adding a couple of fringe free agents, and then, of course, the Hassan Reddick signing.
Yeah, I thought it was sort of exactly what they needed to do, right? I mean, I think that outside of a couple of free agency periods here and there, Jason Licht's free agency plan is always like, hey, we're going to draft really well. And then when it comes to free agency, we're going to take care of the guys that we want to keep on this team. So it was a little bit of par for the course, if I'm sort of remembering things correctly, of how he likes to operate things, where you're building the health of your team through your draft, and you're not necessarily going out and outside of, the Tom Brady era, where it just felt like it was like Tom Brady and friends coming in from the outside. Yeah. But even when that was the case, the roster was very healthy and the core was there because of how they go about this strategy. So I knew that, with Lavonte David, obviously sort of towards the twilight of his career, signing these one-year contracts, and, with Chris Godwin being up, Ben Bredeson wondering what was going to happen with him. They had a handful of other depth players along the defensive line. I figured that it would be a lot of sort of just taking care of your own, but the Hassan Reddick move really surprised me. It was just it was very confusing to watch from afar what was going on with the New York Jets. And this is somebody who was very successful when he was in Philadelphia. He was very successful when he was used the right ways. I think early on in his career, if teams tried to say that he was, this off-ball linebacker and like, okay, he's not really an edge rusher. He's too small to be an edge rusher. Let's use him as a off-ball. But then it wasn't until you got to the coaching staffs and the regimes that said, no, you're best at rushing the passer, that you actually started to get the most out of him. So it made sense that the New York Jets wanted him. But then there was that whole like, okay, well, they agreed to a contract before the trade, and then, okay, did they really? And then he sort of just went ghost on him. They said that he wasn't communicating. And normally Jason stays away from those situations, Yeah. Normally Jason, he didn't want to deal with the headache. He didn't want to deal with all of this and that. Like, he wants to, again, go through the character evaluation process of drafting the right guys, the guys that they believe are Buccaneers through and through, that are culture fits. And then they take care of the team like that. And so they're also not a team that I don't think doesn't do their due diligence of players, because I think they've got burned in that aspect before. So when they signed Hassan Reddick, I was like, damn, okay, I didn't see that coming, but they must have gotten to the bottom of what happened last year, and they must be pretty okay with it, even though it's just a one-year deal, to say we need better pass rushers. We need guys who can win one-on-one. And it was almost crazy to hear Todd Bowles say that when we were at the Combine. This guy who's made an entire career off of blitzing the crap out of offensive lines and offensive coordinators. He was like, hey, we need somebody that can kind of win one-on-one, so we don't have to do that as much. And I was like, is somebody controlling you, or have you been severed here? Like, is this the real Todd Bowles? But they need somebody that can win one-on-one, and Hassan is absolutely one of those players. So even though that was totally out of left field for me, it makes a lot of sense. And when you look at how their offseason went, they retained everybody that they wanted to from an offense that they really loved last year. They're hoping that they can supplement some of their changes on the defensive side of things with a good draft. And I think that's where we'll probably lean as we go through this exercise here. So I would give the Bucs, an A- type of a grade. They didn't touch corner, but you can't touch every single position. So it's hard for me to, say that. I bring Chris Godwin back was obviously the most important thing, and showcased what kind of an organization this is. So it's hard for me to not, even though they still have a major cornerback need, I think it's hard for me to not give this an A, given realistic expectations of what it could have been for them.